All right, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk, Michigan edition. A day early, baby. Jeff here. Dan, how are you, man?
Doing good, buddy. It's hockey season. We're up in Michigan hockey. Just went to last Saturday's game against Lindenwood, where the Wolverines swept the Lions. College hockey is well underway now, and the NHL is about to start. So it's an exciting time. I'm more obviously U of M hockey fan than Red Wings or NHL or anything like that. But man, it's the prime time of the year for me at least.
Yeah. Just got done listening to, obviously, I was listening to some football podcasts, but my first Michigan basketball podcast of the year, just kind of getting a off-season recap. They do over on John Jansen's podcast. It's called Defend the Block. Really good stuff if you're interested in something like that. It's about 35 to 40 minutes of basically off-season recap, who's coming in, who's going, quick little 30 second to 2 minute interviews with players and kind of get a feel for them. But Michigan basketball, I'm excited for. I know you're hyped for hockey, as am I. Definitely not as invested in hockey as I know you are, but yeah, football though. Football's going good. 6-0. 6-0. Back to first time going 6-0 back-to-back seasons since 1976. Did you see that? Was that the
Yeah, it seems. I know Michigan has had its ups and downs since Lloyd Carr, but I thought that was pretty wild, to be honest.
I did too. I because 6-0 in all actuality isn't super impressive, but I will say this, historically speaking, if we're talking about Michigan on a historical point, we used to play Notre Dame in the first 3 weeks of the season for the longest time. So that would kind of fall into that category where maybe we didn't win, every game in the first six. But thought that was an interesting stat. And this is the third time under Jim Harbaugh that he has gone 6-0. 2016, where they went down to Columbus and fell into double overtime. And then obviously last year, the 2021 campaign, we know how that one ended. And now this year. So if you look at Harbaugh's teams, the ones that have gone 6-0, man, those are good teams. And I mean, I think this one's no different. They went to Indiana, and at the end of the first quarter, I believe, or end of the first, it might not even have been the end of the first quarter, but during a commercial break, Mike Hart, a Michigan coach at the time, we didn't even know who it was when it first happened, but a Michigan coach had collapsed on the sideline, and it turns out to be Mike Hart. Turns out that he, it sounds like he was having a seizure from what the reports are, and that's really sad. And I've known you long enough that I know Mike Hart falls in your top 5 favorite players of all time at Michigan. He does for me as well. And this is somebody who we both had the privilege of meeting this past year.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Michigan fans remember Mike Hart in the fondest of ways. And then when he comes back in his first season there, he leads Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum to a special, special season. And then obviously what we know about Blake now, Mike is so well respected and so well liked. And obviously for that to happen, it was pretty sad and scary. And I listened to a little bit of Joe Klatt's podcast, and he saved Michigan to the end for this latest podcast. And he briefly talked about it. He just said it was just the most terrifying thing. He didn't know what was happening. He just knew it was not good based off of how he could see everybody scattering around the sidelines. He just knew that something very wrong had happened. So obviously we know Mike's doing better, but what's your reactions on that? I know you have some. I went a little long-winded there.
No, you're fine. Yeah. Mike Hart was without a doubt probably, other than him and Mario Manningham, they're probably my 2 biggest Wolverines of all time for me personally. Growing up in high school, when you watch football, you're old enough to really start to understand the game more. So you start to bond with people, or you start bonding with athletes. Our generation is Ken Griffey Jr. That was another one of mine, Charles Woodson even. But Mike Hart made me really fall in love with Michigan football. Him and Mario, but more probably Mike Hart. Mike Hart was probably I think he was the first Michigan jersey I ever bought was a number 20 away jersey, which my fat rear end can't really fit into anymore, but I try. But when the coach on the sidelines wasn't revealed yet, and the camera, I was like, just like, what the hell's going on? Like, you just couldn't look away from the screen. And when I saw Mike Hart get put on the stretcher or on the cart, you're like, holy shit, what just happened? And the big thing for me that maybe I kind of like lessened my anxiety level was when I noticed that they didn't have him in a neck brace, and I seen that they tried to restrain his legs for a moment, but then when the cart started driving away, he was just kind of like laying there and he was lifting his head up, and you're like, holy crap, thank God. Like, it wasn't like a player ran into him and like he hurt his leg or something like that. So definitely emotional, and you could tell that Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards were feeling it there. They were a bit teary-eyed, and Joel Klatt, I think, said during the broadcast, he's like that your position coach is kind of like a father figure. I mean, just as much as a head coach, but more your position coach, because you see your position coach kind of more often, I'm assuming. So it was huge. And Mike Hart, when he played in Ann Arbor, there's times when he's been banged up or he missed a few games, and we even, watching the games back then, when he was absent, the team felt off and it felt awkward when he wasn't toting the rock. And that kind of felt this way in this game too. As soon as he left the game, like, there wasn't like a momentum shift to Indiana. There was just like this missing presence of just uncertainty. It was kind of weird, and that's just kind of how it kind of played out.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, I think Michigan just felt like they had the wind knocked out of them for the remainder of that half.
Yeah.
And from the reports that I was reading, I don't remember where I read this, but it sounded like Mike Hart was able to get to the hospital. I'm sure he wanted updates on the game, and when he found out it was 10-10, he called the team at halftime and spoke to them over the phone. Hey guys, I'm okay. We're gonna need you to finish this one out, basically. And I've seen some people pointing this out, like, dude, Mike Hart's the MVP of that game, because that team, they were shook. I mean, I'll speak on this very briefly without making this all about seizures and stuff like that. But I had never personally seen one happen until a couple of years ago. My boss had one right in front of me, and he had told me he had these, but I'd never actually seen it happen. And then it happened literally right in front of me, in front of a group of people, and it took me by like storm. I was like, it just came out of nowhere, and I didn't know how to react to it. So I could just imagine how it would feel when you're literally on the sidelines of a football game, and this person, Mike Hart, has never had any prior seizures, at least that we know of publicly.
Yeah.
I could imagine that would shake somebody up really, really tough. So MVP Mike Hart for making the phone call and saying, hey, I'm good, guys. I'm going to need you to finish this one out. And they were stellar in the second half after being tied 10-10 at the half, outscoring them 21-0 to finish off Indiana in a road environment. So hats off to the Michigan team. Obviously, we barely talked any football as far as that went, but Michigan had a pretty balanced attack, ultimately. JJ, I think he was 28 of like 36 for over 300 yards. It was his first career 300-yard passing game, so, good on him. The team rushed for over 100 yards, and ultimately they find a way to get a W. I say find a way. They won 31-10. I mean, the game wasn't really that close, but ultimately they found a way.
Yeah, again, like, obviously, like you alluded to, the win was taken out of their sails at the end of that half, and then when they came out in the third quarter, pretty much played some stellar football. The play calling to me on the offensive side, like a lot of the quarterback,
Offensive coordinator.
The couch quarterback mentality.
Oh, yes.
Of fans were oh, this is predictable play calling. And I see it a little bit that it seems like on first down, it was just like a guaranteed run. And then the second down was like a 70-30 run. So I can see a little bit of that. But, they wanted to establish the run. And as they leaned on it more and it got into the fourth quarter, Michigan started to open up a little bit between the tackles. But yeah, 300 yards through the air for JJ. They started slinging a rock. Bronny Bell had a big day. So nothing to really complain about there, other than maybe a few stanzas. Last season I wrote this down. Last season, Hassan Haskins against Indiana, carried it 27 times for 168 yards, and he had a 62-yard run. Right, so without that carry, he's averaging 4 yards a touch. Without Blake's 50-yard scamper this past Saturday, he's averaging 3 yards a touch. So that what tells me is that Indiana is just committed to stopping the run. And we've talked about it all the time. Indiana, no matter where they're at program-wise, they're always going to play U of M tough. We said it so in the preview. And, last year's win, I remember when that was over. I don't know if we mentioned this last week, but I remember when that game was over last year. A lot of Ohio State fans, a lot of Michigan fans were like, that's just not going to be enough to beat Ohio State. And look what happened, right? It's all about matchups. That's just what happens against Indiana. And, again, after Lloyd Carr, this series between these two has just been up and down and just the craziest of fashions. A lot of drama. So I'm not really dwelling on too much of this nonsense here, but Connor Bazelak slung it 49 times and he only threw for 203 yards, 7 sacks, 4 hurries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't ask for more from the pass rush there at all.
No, two things. I want to comment on the pass rush in a minute, but before we go any farther, you had touched on something just a second ago, and I want to kind of circle back to it. The predictable play calling. A lot of the fans, obviously, the Monday morning quarterbacks were too predictable. I do want to ask you a question though, because it happened live on air, and I know a lot of people are pissed about it.
Yeah,
Joe Klatt basically calling out our plays as it happened. I'm sure you've seen it. I don't know if you were paying attention to it, but he called out our plays literally live on air, and they ran the play. People are obviously very upset. Not that Joe Klatt called the play, because this is going to be the 4th straight week against Penn State this week when the game's on Big Noon. So he had done 3 in a row at that point. It's not that he called the play. It's that we were being so predictable that Klatt, who had seen us 3 weeks away, literally knew what we were running. Opinions on that? Do you have an issue with that? Is that something that just like comes with the territory of calling 3 games in a row? What do you make of all that?
Honestly, I think it's a little bit gray area, because if he's called for 3 or 4 Michigan games already.
That was the 3rd in a row, and I think he called another one too. So, and this is going to be literally the 4th in a row now against Penn State. So,
I think he's just familiar with it, and he is brought on to Colin Cowherd each week to literally talk Michigan football.
Yeah.
To make us comments on it, because they love jib-jabbing about it. So, I just think it goes with just he just studying the film inside and out, because that's just what that's what he does, right?
Yeah.
So the only thing that I guess I'm gonna say that really bothers me, it was way late in the game anyway. They put Alex Orji in, and it's like when Alex Orji is in, I'm near the goal line. You already know it's a design run, and I think the dude has gotten no more than 3 yards a rush through the whole season. So, when he goes in there, you're already guaranteeing you're already showing what you're going to do. Other than that, I couldn't care less.
I thought that, and we're kind of just circling around here. I thought that was an interesting move to bring in Alex Orji there. Because it wasn't a blowout. Like 3 scores at that point, it may have been 3 scores, or maybe they were about to punch in the 3rd one.
Yeah.
But the game still, while it seemed out of reach, it was just a weird spot to put Alex Orji in, because he hasn't got any Big Ten play love at all yet. And in that spot in a game that was for a minute there not put out of reach, it was just weird. Second thing is, Alex, in my opinion, is, if you're going to use him, it's only because he's good in the short yardage. Like JJ's as effective as a runner, I think, at this point. I don't even think that's arguable. So it's like, I understand maybe if Cade's in there, but with JJ in there, it's like, what are you doing? And obviously, it ended up being a short yardage plunge, and I don't even think he got the first down, did he?
I don't think he did.
Yeah, I don't think he did. I think he was stopped short. So I just remember thinking to myself, Jim, what are you doing? Like, this is weird. Obviously, we've questioned a few of Jim's quarterback calls over the last couple of years, but it just was a head scratcher for me. I'm like, it didn't make sense. It felt out of play, and the game wasn't out of reach. So it's like, why is Alex in there? But then again, with no Cade, maybe it's to get him a live rep. I don't really know, but anything more on the actual game of Indiana before we talk like dislike more of anything that you want to touch on?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought it was a good victory. And everything that they endured coming out in the second half and putting the blank on them 21 zip. I was over the moon. I spoke last week about Iowa. I was like, if we would have beat Iowa by a point, would I have been slightly disappointed or like, concerned? Maybe, but I would have been happy just to come out of there with a win. After what transpired, to come out of that half, beat them down and win, I was like, let's go, baby. This is a good win. Like, I felt good about it. The AP poll didn't, but fuck them. So liked, disliked, more of. I'll start with liked here. The passing attack. I talked about it earlier with JJ Stats, first 300-yard passing game. Ronnie Bell, 11 catches for 121. Like you called it, a monster game. That's a great game from Ronnie. I think those are career highs, if I'm not mistaken. It's at least a career high catches. Luke Schoonmaker talked about it in the preview show that he was potentially going to have a good Indiana game, and he did. 9 catches for 67 yards and a tutty. He had 2 last year against them, and I was texting you this. It is very apparent that JJ loves Luke Schoonmaker. I mean, I'm not praising Eric All for getting hurt. I'm not saying that's a good thing. He seems way more comfortable having Luke as a tight end than Eric for whatever reason. And then CJ, Cornelius Johnson there, 4 catches for 58 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. After what looked to be a crucial drop, he recovered and had a big day. So that's pretty much what I liked, just the passing attack. I thought that was the best passing attack of the year under the circumstances.
Yep. Yeah, I'm the same. I wrote down JJ. JJ wasn't sacked or hurried at all in the stat column. So the offensive line they did great in pass pro, and they did decent in the run game. Whatever. I know Trente Jones went down, and so even though he went down, hopefully he recovers. It looks like a pretty serious knee injury. Carson Barnhart filled in, whatever, and so he's essentially a starter. So they have 6 starters. So they picked up right where they left off. But so I thought the offensive line did well, other than them trying to stymie the run, and then Blake Corum, making things happen when it looks grim. Going to the left on that one play and literally having 4 guys on all sides of him, and he just dips right and he's gone. Blake Corum is just a machine. So, kept JJ on his feet, passing game, and then Blake Corum making chicken salad. So, yep.
As far as disliked, I considered not putting one for this week because it's just really hard to nitpick a team that went through what they went through. But I am gonna nitpick. 21 first downs allowed.
Yeah,
that's tough. And I've come to realize that if I had to pick one weakness of this team today, like you're like, Jeff, what's a glaring weakness? The third down defense, I think has not been great. And I just feel like they've given up. I know there's been obviously late touchdowns, late in games, but there's been some third and longs that have been given up in certain situations. And I don't have the statistic in front of me, so I don't know what they rank or whatever. But I just feel like the third down defense hasn't been great. And 21 first downs, for whatever reason, that tells me it probably wasn't. So, yeah, I think ultimately, allowing a team to possess the ball and continuously get first downs on you is not a recipe to win games. But when you got, they got more of them. So I guess I'll let this one go, but that was my disliked.
Yeah, and for me, the dislikes, I got a couple serious ones, and I got one that's just me being a jaded a-hole. The one thing I really didn't like was it who was it? Was it Chris Jenkins? It was or Mike Morris? Or no, Jalen Harrell with the celebration where he wipes across his face.
Yes.
Give me a break. Part of this bitch session I'm having right now is on both sides of the ball. These officials were just absolutely atrocious, and oh my god, if this was the Ohio State game, the internet would disintegrate. Like they would not let these guys play, and they're just these ticky tack. And then Platt even mentioned it in the first quarter. There was that makeup call on the non PI or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was just disgusting.
Not to cut you off, but I want to comment on what you just said. So I'm not it's very clear. I say this all the time. I'm not a ref thumper. I don't really get into that shit. But even I posted on my Facebook status, the Michigan, Indiana refs were trying to make the game about them. Like, it was so apparent. They were trying to be the stars of the show. Super annoying. I'm a Patriot fan. I've watched every game this year, and Matthew Judon has had a sack in every single game this year. And he does, basically, it's called like the wipe the brow, where you're basically, it's kind of like like you're wiping the sweat off your face, whatever. That is what Jalen Harrell had been doing. It was not a slow throat slash. To be honest, I don't even know how you assume that it was, because that gesture is just so much different. Like it's quick or maybe or dramatic, but it was literally like he had his head tilted back. He was, it was just the whole shenanigans. I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Because I believe that was a third down sack. They were coming off the field.
That was going to end that drive.
Yes, it was ending the drive. It was a big time sack, and all of a sudden it's first down. And to be honest, I think they probably scored on that. I don't remember, but yeah, I agree with you. I'll let you keep going. So I just want to chime in there.
You're fine. And the second one is my second serious one is kind of like what you just said about the third downs. I feel like even on first and second down, I feel like the coverage was really soft. Now, I'm not a film guru or whatever, so maybe the coaches obviously will have their reasoning behind it, but I felt like in the first couple drives, Indiana was able to dink and dunk on the screens all day. They kind of went away from that later on in the game, trying to play catch up or whatnot. But I just felt like the corners were just given way too much room, and I feel like that goes to the credit to a lot of the first downs, because second and 5, third and 2, or whatever, it was almost like a given that they were gonna pick up the first down with just a quick hitch or a quick screen. And then my last one here, and this one's more of me being jaded. Fox Sports, their production crew needs to find some new theme songs, because they are absolutely putrid. When someone misses a field goal, or they have like a block punt or something, they always play the song by Citizen Kane, "I've Seen Better Days," and it's just so like cliche and like just boring. It's just so cringe. It's like watching a politician dab on stage trying to be hip. It's just stop. Anyways, that's me. That's me bitching. It was just terrible.
I don't know that I've ever noticed that. So that is too funny.
When Jake Moody's field goal, Moody's field goal was blocked, and when Mike Morris blocked Indiana's field goal, I think they played it after both when they went to commercial break, and they've done it before in games this year, and it's just like, oh my god, it's just so cringe.
Only because I feel like we both kind of beat him up. I feel like it's important to note this is actually, because it was the biggest question mark heading into the season was the defense. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as their national ranks in points allowed, They're giving up 11.3. That's good for fifth in the nation. Okay. Which weirdly enough, listen to the top 5. Number 1 in the nation, Illinois. Okay. Big Ten. Minnesota 2, Big Ten. Number 3, Iowa, Big Ten. Number 4, Georgia. And then it's Michigan. So weirdly enough, 4 of the top 5 are Big Ten teams. Yards allowed, Michigan, 5th. Sacks. There are 3 teams that have more sacks than us in the country. USC at 24, the Bearcats at 23 of Cincinnati, 23 for the Liberty Flames, and then Michigan with 22. So the defense has been pretty good. And I realize we're beating them up here, but just wanted to shout them out for a quick second.
No.
And which another player I wanted to shout out as the more of. I have 2 here. Rod Moore. Rod Moore has really come on, and I heard something that I thought I would share on the pod here. So Rod Moore, one of the safeties of the team, been getting more and more playing time. He's basically a starting safety now. He had the interception this past week. So Harbaugh shared a really cool story about him. Coming into this season, when they had spring ball practice, basically each player is given like a tablet of like film, and they can show film of the practice, they can show film of last year's games and stuff like that. And basically Harbaugh has a way of tracking it. Who's watching the most film? The second most guy, on the team had around 250 different, maybe it was hours or whatever the heck it is over the course of all of spring practice.
Yeah.
Rod Moore was number 1 on the team with over 500 hours. So more than the second guess. And Jim Harbaugh said, he's like, 250 hours is exceptional. He's like, I was very happy to see these guys in the 250. Rod is he's another animal. Like, he's just an absolute film junkie. Like we always hear about Blake. They talked about in the pre-show. Blake Corum's a weight room junkie. Rod Moore wants to be the most prepared guy everywhere he goes. Meetings, the game, wherever. Wanted to shout him out. More of him. He's been fantastic. And also, one more time, I said it last week, I'm going to say it again, the Blake Heisman campaign. Let's keep this puppy rolling. 735 rush yards. That's good for 3rd in the country. 11 TDs, good for 2nd in the country. So keep that Blake hype train rolling.
Absolutely. My more of is kind of shouted him out last week. Yabioki. He got a new name in the last 3 weeks here in the Big Ten. He's really come on. He's starting to get more playing time. You're starting to see 18 out there a lot more. A couple sacks or at least a sack and a half, and I think 2 tackles for a loss in this game against Iowa or Indiana.
In a dropped interception that he almost had.
Yeah. So he's starting to wreak havoc there. And again, man, if this works out, if he continues to improve, it's literally a free NFL talent that we got literally
for nothing
of the NCAA season. And secondly, as Jesse Minter, I think you and I both seen this on Twitter. I forget who posted it, but coming out of the second half, Indiana 0 points, 5 punts, 1 turnover, and 29 yards of offense. So Minter has shown, at least in Big Ten play so far, of the very noticeable halftime adjustments. I know Maryland got the garbage time points at the end of that game, but literally just night and day difference. And kudos to Jesse Minter.
Yeah. Anything else at all on Indiana?
I'm ready to talk some lines.
All right. So Penn State. Let me give you a season recap here. First off, they are 5-0. Okay, they're not 6-0 like Michigan because they just had a bye. So they're 5-0. Week 1, they were at Purdue, so they opened up their season on the Big Ten game. They won 35-31. So people are high on Purdue this year. I believe this is Purdue's only loss. Am I right or wrong on that? Or do they have 2 losses now? Doesn't matter. But
they lost to Syracuse.
Okay, so and Syracuse is undefeated. So Purdue has only lost to 2 undefeated teams. Okay. So Penn State, then next week, their home opener, they beat Ohio, not Ohio State, Ohio Bobcats, 46-10. Then week 3, a true road game, Power 5 opponent. They go to Auburn. Okay. And they beat down the Auburn Tigers. Now, mind you, Auburn's not very good this year, but still, when you go on the road to an SEC opponent and you beat them down 41-12, it's a big win. And then week 4, home against Central Michigan, they win big 33-14. And then the week before their bye, they beat Northwestern 17-7. So we're definitely the best opponent they've played, but they're also the best opponent we've played. So we match up that way. This is a maze out. It's going to be Fox noon kickoff again, 4th straight week for us. Joe Klatt and Gus Johnson calling the game. You take it away.
Yeah, so Penn State, obviously any win in SEC country is great. It's admirable, right? So again, yeah, you're right. This is the first big clash for both these schools this season. Penn State is coming into this game in the conference ranks of 2 in rush defense and 10th in pass. So in the preview, I had noted that their front 7 has question marks, but a lot of potential, which that's what they're showing here. And in the back end of the secondary, they got a lot of work to do. So you figure that J.J. McCarthy, they might lean on him again this week to sling the rock, and I hope they do, and hopefully it works out for him. Penn State, they're not like got a bunch of superstars, but Sean Clifford is back for like his 20th season, and he's, again, I've commended him many times before, being a dead horse here. Just the gamer quarterback, right? So he's going to want to go out on a good note against U of M. They've kind of had his number recent. For all of Michigan's, for all of Michigan's stinginess at slowing down or having issues with stopping tight ends, we go to last year in the Big Ten championship game, and we go to Luke Lachey or Luke Lachey here against Iowa a couple weeks ago. They have Brenton Strange, so I feel like the tight end here, Brenton Strange, could have some highlight moments. We got to keep him quiet. And their running back situation going into the season, we thought Kayvon Lee, who came back, it was going to be the starter. They're actually rolling with a true freshman, Nicholas Singleton, I believe is his name, and they kind of rotate in 4 guys, but they rely on Singleton as the top dog. They rank in 5th in rushing and 7th in pass, so they've been able to move the ball on offense. I just think this is going to be a gritty game, classic Michigan, back and forth. I feel like it might feel like a little bit like how it did last year. It took Michigan to hit Eric Gall on a crossing route and get in the end zone at the very end to get out of Happy Valley. So tough rush defense, and we're boasting a stout rush offense. So can we run the ball when we want to? And if we can't, can we soften them up with a pass? So, yeah, I think this is going to come down to possibly a field goal game here like it did last year, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know if you had said this. I know you're throwing out some statistics. So Penn State's rush defense is actually the 5th best in the country. They're giving up less than 80 yards a game.
Yeah.
And obviously that's what Michigan's very good at. But on the flip side, Michigan is literally 7th in the country. So they give up 79.8. We give up 81.7. So identical rush defenses, very stingy for both teams. But that's how both teams are going to try and probably attack each other, if I had to guess. Ball control one another, control the line of scrimmage. That's definitely how the game is going to be won. Who's able to run the ball on the other and who doesn't turn it over. I wanted to bring something up because I feel like it's gotten a ton of it's been a topic of conversation. I'm sure you've seen this. So this game was announced as a maze out. Okay. And Michigan has been giving subtle hints over the last couple of weeks that there's a potential that the Wolverines are going to wear the all maize jerseys, or at least the top maize jersey. And there's a lot of fans that have a problem with this, not because they don't want them to wear maize, but because they think that they won't be able to, like JJ won't be able to see his receivers. Do you have an opinion on this? If Michigan were to don the all maize jerseys while the game is a maze out?
Complete silliness. Complete silliness. You watch the games, like, when the football field is sunken into the ground at Michigan Stadium, it's not like they're going to be like playing above you. Stop. It's just absolute silliness. Rock the Mays. Go all Mays pants. Go all blue. I'd rather see the Mays jersey and the blue pants, to be honest with you, to balance it out. But
Same.
I mean, yeah, God, it's been a lot better since beating Ohio State and ending last year how it did. But sometimes the Michigan fan base, you go into a message board and you'll find yourself wanting to punch air. It is so irritating.
Yeah, to be honest, I honestly don't know why I follow some of these groups. They're pretty toxic. Opinions on the Mays jerseys. I think you slightly gave you almost hope that they wear the Mays jersey with the blue pants.
Absolutely. That was the last Michigan jersey I bought, was after the Florida game in Jerry World, and
yeah,
I rocked them. I rocked that more times than not. But yeah, I dig it. And put on the record, for everyone else to hear, you've heard it a million times. I wish Michigan would stick with the flat blue and put the yellow. Geez, I crucify me for that one. The maize wings. I'd rather have that like a chrome feel for a night game. And I know some of the old guard Michigan fans will be at my front door with the pitchfork and torch, coming to axe murder me. But I think that would look sweet too.
No, I've always been the one, and I've argued with a lot of people over this. Don't touch the helmet, but in the game that comes to mind would be I believe it was the Outback Bowl when they played South Carolina, the Javion Clowney game. They wore a flat matte blue in that game. Remember, it didn't have that shine to it. It was kind of like a flat helmet. I would totally be down with an all chrome. Give me the chrome domes. Those, keep the wing. Don't ever take the wing helmet away, because like that, it literally is a named helmet. Like you can't, like don't ever throw just a block M on the side. I wouldn't be down for that, but I'd always be down for, you want to throw a chrome helmet up there or something. I'd be all for it. So as long as their tradition is kind of, don't reverse the helmet. Don't be making any crazy adjustments. But if you want to change the finish, all day. You want to go flat, you want to go shiny, you want to go chrome, I'm all for that. But as far as the jersey combinations, my hope, maize up top, blue down low. But at the same time, I'd also be cool with the all maize jerseys for this feel. This is fuck Michigan State. This is our top opponent this year. I mean, as far as home games, I'm not talking about Ohio State right now. Home games, this is the top one. Last year they had two really big home games, Washington and Ohio State. This year, the two big ones are Penn State and Michigan State. But Michigan State, in my opinion, they're not in that league. So go all out.
Sorry, real quick. With the whole, he's not going to be able to see the wide receivers when he passes the ball. So you mean to tell me when it was ketchup versus mustard at Chrysler and Ohio State was wearing all red, Michigan was wearing all maize jerseys, numbers, socks, that Trey Burke couldn't pass the ball to Tim Hardaway because he was the same color as the student section? Get lost.
I was at that game. It's my favorite sporting event I've ever been to.
Yeah, Jeff, were you able to even see the players on there? Because you guys were
the whole thing is legitimately, if you look at Michigan Stadium on a traditional Saturday, 90% of it is blue.
Yeah.
What jerseys do they wear? Blue. What? The whole thing is hilarious to me. But I don't know. There are people that legitimately have issues with this, though. And I promise you, if they wear these maize jerseys and JJ throws a pick, they will come unglued. I promise you, the Michigan fans will come unglued.
Well, and also real fast, this weekend it's going to be 52 degrees.
Yeah.
I don't think outside the student section there's going to be much maize anyways, because I know a lot of people, this comment is, I didn't create this theory or this idea, but a lot of people, like even me, us as diehard Michigan fans, all my hoodies are practically blue. And all my shirts are practically blue outside of a few maize ones. But I think because of the temperature, I think a lot of people are going to be wearing whatever they feel comfortable with if you're not a student. So I really don't think that I just don't think the maze out's is gonna be executed if you're not a student very well.
Well, it's fun. I 100% agree with you. Do you remember the two games that were maze outs last year? Washington, which was week 2, it was 75, 80 degrees. And
Yeah,
the other one, Ohio State, there wasn't a lick of maze in that place because
yeah,
nobody owns a maze coat. Like,
yeah,
you just don't. Nobody's walking around with a Maze Michigan coat. It's either
yeah.
blue or you're wearing your traditional coat, your blacks, your grays, your browns that normal people own. Like, you're
Yeah.
not walking around with this bright Maze Michigan coat. Nobody owns that. Matter of fact, I've never seen one. So it's just the idea that you're going to be able to throw up a maze out in cold climates is kind of silly. And I would only because you brought this up, I'm gonna go into this. Somebody actually said on Twitter, they're like, is this whole maze out thing even effective if it's not warm out? Making that case. And
Mhm.
I simply said, I said, last time they did the maze out was against Ohio State. Nobody in the stadium was wearing maze. Nobody. Matter of fact, look at the photo, the iconic photo of everybody rushing the field. Show me a single ounce of maze on that photo. It's all blue, blue and a little
Yeah.
bit of red. Okay. It's all blue. And the thing is like the way they did the maze out is they handed out those pom poms. If that's the
Mhm.
way you want to produce a maze out, it is what it is. But I agree with you. You're not going to have to worry about the maze in the fans because truthfully, it's too cold. People are going to be wearing
Yeah.
coats.
Yep.
So we've talked a lot about jerseys. Um, got a couple over unders. You ready?
Let's do it.
Blake Corum, 99 and a half over under rushing yards. He's been good for over 100 lately.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go over just because he's almost. They're just giving him 30 touches, man. I think it's just because he'll have. I think he'll have one big run like he did against Indiana, score not score, and then he'll have 5 yards here, 3 yards here, 8 yards here. Just because I'm giving respect to Penn State, but I say he creeps over to that 110, 115 range.
Yeah, and Donovan's been getting the carries, but it hasn't affected Blake's carries. So I do think Blake sees at least 25 in this game. He's good for 5 yards a clip. Give me a hundy. I'll go over. Uh, he's been a touchdown machine. Blake Corum touchdowns 1.5 over under.
Um, I'm gonna go under. I think he gets one for sure, and I think they work around somewhere else. Maybe Donovan Edwards comes in and vultures it. I don't think this is going to be a high scoring affair, so I don't think there's going to be touchdowns getting passed around like Oprah's book club, right? So um, I'll take the under.
Oh my gosh. Like Oprah's book club. I'm gonna go the over only because I do see this game as being low scoring, but I think that Blake is just the guy they trust in these situations where you get down to the goal line, you need to punch it in. Um, man, I could totally see a 21-17 game here with
Yeah,
Blake getting 2 or even 3 all the touchdowns. I mean, plus I do believe, Harbaugh actually finally mentioned it um in his inside Michigan football, his interview. He actually said the word Heisman campaign. So he's well aware. And I think he does want to get Blake that rock. And first off, Blake has been respectful with it. He hasn't fumbled. Knock on wood. I don't know if you heard that, but yeah, I think he gets over 1.5. I like the 2 mark there. JJ McCarthy passing yards 205.5 over under.
205.5. I think he's going to get more than that because of Penn State's ranked 10th in the conference pass defense. And at Purdue, I think put a hurt into him in the secondary. And I know that game was a while ago. I know it was week 1 or week 0 when I think that happened. But I think that the aerial assault continues, at least in terms of yards.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over here too, simply just because I think 205, first off, is doable for him. In a competitive game, I think that's doable for him. But also, I think we're gonna have to lean on him because this is gonna be where I could see this being low scoring. I don't think we're gonna struggle to move the ball. I don't think
I
it's
just
just
think
gonna be like
yeah.
yeah, and I could see him getting. I could see a big play, and a big play could be a fourth of this. So, give me the over here. JJ 1.5 touchdown passes over under.
Mm, I'll take over. I'll take over. I think he gets a couple. I think a couple's doable.
Okay, I'm taking the under simply for what I said about Blake. Just in these short yardage plays, Blake seems to be the guy. And unless JJ goes over the top, I don't see more than one in this game. But I obviously would love to see him throw 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, however many he needs. But
Yeah.
I could see a lot of Blake in this game, and I'll take the under there. Last but not least, Michigan's favored by 7. They covering under over?
I said earlier that it's probably gonna be a field goal game, but because I like the odds and what my potential payout is on DraftKings, I took the spread. I took +7 or -7, excuse me. So I have them covering absolutely.
I just have a feeling that this could be a game that's kind of eye-opening for some people because obviously Michigan they haven't had the hardest schedule, but they've been able to move the ball on everybody, including Iowa, who was the number 1 defense in the country when they played them. And I don't think they're going to have a ton of trouble moving the ball. It might be tight scoring and stuff like that, but this crowd's going to be rowdy. I feel it. They've been rowdy the last 2 times for Mays out, so I'm hoping 3 in a row here. They were super rowdy for that Washington game, and of course the Ohio State game. I don't even need to talk on that one. People know about that, but I'm hoping this one is rowdy as well, and that plays into at least 3 to 7 points for us, in my opinion. So give me a cover, and if they don't, I think that we at least push here. So I got Michigan by at least 7. So push or cover. I agree. Okay. Anything else on Penn State before we hit the mailbag?
Yes, I have an over/under I just came up with as we were going through these. So for you, Jake Moody, over/under.
How many?
Over/under 2 field goals.
Love it. Over/under 2. Give me 2. Give me just 2. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I figure we got to give Money Moody some love on the.
Oh, absolutely. We need to start including Jake. I agree. We need to. Anything else, or are you ready for mailbag?
Let's do mailbag, dog.
Okay. First question comes in from Jamie. If you listen to the pod weekly, you know who Jamie is by now. Who is the better team, Clemson or Michigan? I'm asking because Clemson moved past Michigan. So I'll start off here. 2 things. A, the AP poll, fuck them. Second thing, Clemson goes on the road to Boston College and beats a 2-4 team. Has no coach collapse on the sideline to my knowledge. Michigan goes on the road, beats a 3-3 team, has a coach literally collapse on the sideline and wins 31-10. Clemson wins 31-3. So we gave up an extra 7 points on the road to a better team, and you're gonna drop us? Fuck them. Second thing is, the one thing to answer his question, is Clemson better than Michigan? I think Clemson matches up very well with Michigan because Clemson's probably the best run defense in the entire country. A matter of fact, they are second, only behind James Madison. And let's be honest, who's better at run defense, Clemson or James Madison? Okay. Yeah, fair point, right? So Clemson's probably got the best run defense in the country. And if you're going to stop Michigan, you got to stop them from running the rock. They match up great. But as of today, Clemson has beaten better teams than Michigan has. So
Mhm.
I'm okay with where they're at. And I think Clemson, it's just a bad matchup for Michigan. I would probably take Clemson.
Yeah, you're right. Clemson has beaten Wake Forest on the road. That was 51-45, so defense was non-existent there.
Correct.
They beat NC State by 10, but that was 2 weeks prior to this. So they're punishing Michigan for how Indiana played out, and they're giving credit to the 31-3 win at Boston College. Boston College lost to Rutgers week 1. So in terms of just this past week of them jumping them, doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. If they jump them anywhere after the Wake Forest or NC State game, you could probably make an argument because Michigan, played, I think, Maryland and Iowa at the time, but I think the Iowa game is very respectable. I don't care what their ranking is. I don't care what their record and wins loss is. That's a solid win either way, just like Penn State going to Auburn is.
Yeah.
I think Clemson could possibly, beat Michigan by 5 or 3 or whatever, maybe even 7. But in terms of this past week, it was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Just not that this was part of the question, but you just touched on something, and I 100% agree. If you can't see the value in going to a good Power 5 school on the road in winning, I can't help you. Like, I understand Auburn's 3-3, but if you have to go to Auburn and beat them, that's a good win. Like Penn State going to Auburn, that's a good win. Michigan going to Iowa and beating Iowa, that is a good win. Like, I don't know how else to like chalk that up for you. Like, if you don't get that, you're not going to understand. I get it, but some people just love to like, wow, they're not that good, or obviously, if you listen to the pod and you're an OG, you hear us talk about our buddy Shane here and there. Our buddy Shane, very pessimistic Michigan fan. Michigan beat Wisconsin last year. Now, Wisconsin had lost like 3 in a row before Michigan beat them. All the 3 teams they lost to were very good. I think it was literally Michigan, Ohio State, and maybe Michigan State who had beat them. And Wisconsin literally ran the table after Michigan beat them. That was a good win. I don't care how you chalk it up. Michigan going to Wisconsin last year and beating Wisconsin was a good win. And there were people that were like, oh, the sky's falling. It's like, Wisconsin's trash. That was not a good win. It's like, I don't see how you see that, but okay, it is what it is. This is a 2-parter because 2 people asked this question, so I'm going to kind of combine it. Jamie starts off. He says, if a 2-loss Texas runs the table, can they make the playoff, knowing that a 2-loss team never has? But then, so keep that in mind as I read this next part. This is Brad. Everybody knows Brad. He says Texas is ranked 22nd. 2 losses are to Texas Tech by 3 with a backup quarterback, and a 1 loss to Bama with an injured starting quarterback that went to a backup. Their schedule is as follows. First, Iowa State at home, at number 8 Oklahoma State, who's undefeated, bye week. At number 17 Kansas State, home against undefeated TCU, at currently ranked number 19 Kansas, home against Baylor. And then there is no Big 12 championship, correct? They still have not gotten one of those. I don't believe they have a Big 12 championship. Am I wrong?
I thought they did.
Did they?
I don't know. I can't. I mean, people right now are listening. Are like, yeah or no, you idiots.
Yeah.
I can't remember if they do or not.
Okay. Regardless of whether they do or not. So is this? It looks like they do have a Big 12 championship. Okay, I just answered that. So they're going to have to play another team. If they win out, where's Texas?
I think they could make it very I think they can make it very interesting. I can see them being in Notre Dame shoes last year, being one of the first out. I think that holds. I think that holds as long as Oklahoma State, Kansas State, TCU, and Kansas remain relevant. If they fall off out of the rankings, or if they don't look as stout on the resume, yeah, it all depends on how their schedule looks at the end of the season. But yeah, I mean, they could definitely cause some drama. They just have to go out there and take care of their business. And there's a lot of good teams this year, so to bump a one loss or an undefeated team would be very hard to do. So if they go out there and they put up a good performance against a ranked team, especially what is it when they have to go on the road back to Oklahoma State, Kansas State, if they come away with convincing victories in both those games, you have to peel your eyelids, and this team looks a lot better with Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, so first off, I'm going to speak here, and every single thing I speak in is in what ifs. Okay, so just know I'm not making predictions. I'm speaking solely if this happened. Okay, only because there's two people that asked the question, so enough people obviously enough people care. Georgia would have to lose to Alabama, giving them one loss. Okay, Alabama would need to stay undefeated. Ohio State, Michigan, one of them will win, one of them will lose. One of them needs to be almost eliminated from this conversation. Okay, maybe it's a blowout, maybe it's another road win or a road loss. Somehow, some way, Michigan or Ohio State needs to be eliminated from the conversation. Clemson. Okay, so you basically have Alabama guaranteed in, and then either Michigan or Ohio State in. So that's 2 of the 4. Okay, Clemson. I don't see where they will lose again because they've already played the top tier of their competition. They do still have Notre Dame. At this point, I don't see that being a loss. So I think Clemson's almost guaranteed to be in. But again, that's only if they run the table. That leaves us now to number 6, Tennessee. Tennessee has to lose to Bama this weekend. Get them out of the question. Okay? And that, obviously I have Bama staying undefeated in this one-if scenario. Then you have USC. USC, I think, has to lose at least once. At least once. Okay? So whoever that is. Number 8, Oklahoma State. Well, we just said Texas has to win out. So that means they're beating Oklahoma State. Okay? Ole Miss would have to lose to Alabama as well. Okay? So that keeps Alabama undefeated. That gives Ole Miss a loss. Penn State loses to Michigan or loses to Ohio State or both. Okay, that eliminates them. UCLA has to have another loss. So whether that's USC or UCLA playing each other, the problem is at this point in the season, there's so many undefeated still. I don't know if you noticed this. There's a shit ton of undefeated teams. So obviously that's a big problem. One of those teams need to lose. Oregon, in my opinion, there's almost nothing they can do to get back in. Even if they won the Pac-12, if they win out, I still don't think they're in. They got beat down so badly by Georgia, and the level of competition's not that high. Obviously, there's UCLA and there's USC they have to play. TCU, well, they would have lost to Texas, so that makes sense. So you get what I'm saying here. Every team above them would essentially have to lose, and that would completely open the door for Texas, who at that point you would sit there and say their one loss is to Texas in a close game with a backup, and their other loss was on the road against a ranked opponent at the time with a backup. Yeah. Then you could start talking about getting back in there. But you're basically saying I need so much chaos to happen.
Yeah.
It's not that it's unrealistic, but right now, as it stands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 undefeateds. 14 teams are still undefeated. They don't have a loss. So
James Matt, creeping in there.
James Madison, number 25, the best run defense in the country. Yeah, lots of really good teams. I do say this, and I said this after they lost to Bama. Texas needed to be ranked with a loss. That's how good they looked. And then they lose to Texas Tech, which, to be honest, that's predictable. You had a backup quarterback. He hasn't been taking the reps that Quinn has. And when Quinn plays, they've been great. Now, I will say this. Don't fall into this trap just because they beat Oklahoma. Everybody's beat Oklahoma like a drum this season. Like, is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went long-winded there.
No, you're good.
Obviously, it's early. Do you have any agreements, disagreements? Texas needs chaos. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, they could be Notre Dame last year. I think they could creep up into that top 8, possibly. And again, a lot of these teams that are still undefeated will be playing each other or playing other tough conference foes. Like you said, Tennessee, they're going to be facing off against Crimson Tide. Georgia is going to be on a collision course with Crimson Tide. Clemson, they have a couple strong, like really, they got out of their ranked opponents so far. I think they got one more coming up here, but they just got to do their business and they have a good shot. And then obviously USC is 6-0. They haven't looked completely impressive. That's why they fell back one spot in the rankings, but they're still undefeated. And obviously Penn State being at 10, Michigan's at 5 or 4, whatever poll you're looking at. And so again, that you'll see Penn State catapult up if they beat Michigan, and Michigan probably will grab that spot again in the AP if they beat Penn State. So yeah, again, this is the part where everything is starting to getting interesting.
Yeah, and they wouldn't be the first team ever to win the national championship with 2 losses in college football. 2007 LSU did it, but obviously that was before the college football playoff even. So it's possible. You need a lot of teams to lose. You need more parity, essentially. And right now, I mean, what I say, there's 14 undefeateds.
Yeah.
That ain't a lot of parity. That's a lot of top heavy. So now a lot of those teams are going to beat each other up by default because they still have to play each other. But it's gonna make for a fun finish. But Texas 100% has to win out, or they're not even in the conversation. One loss takes them out. They 100% have to win out, and then they need a lot of teams beating up on each other.
Absolutely, and shout out to Chip Kelly and the UCLA Bruins. Week 1 they had 14 people in the stands, and now look at them. Start from the
Doesn't
bottom.
matter.
Now they're 11th in the polls, like they've come out of nowhere. So, and they took down my Huskies a couple weeks ago. So yeah, the UCLA's there too, making some noise. So yeah, that's the fun thing about college football.
Yeah. I'm gonna wait till next week to ask this question. I have a question that I was gonna ask, but I want to wait another week.
No problem.
See what happens with this Michigan Penn State game. So we were going to talk about this last week. Technical difficulties cut us short. This one's going great, so let's just hit it. Wisconsin, they fired their coach. Kind of came out of nowhere. Nebraska already fired their coach. Before we talk about potential candidates, Wisconsin. What do you think of Paul Chryst being let go midseason? Kind of frustrating, kind of shocking there. The midseason firing was really the biggest question mark. But give me your opinions there.
Well, yeah. Paul Chryst came in and really just continued on the Wisconsin Badger tradition of stout offensive line, duo of running backs, and going to put up Barry Sanders type rushing numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Wisconsin being in the West, Paul Chryst's record's good. He's made some noise in the conference West, being the division winner. Winning some bowl games, some pretty good ones. But just like they've been comparing him to Bo Pelini, just like Bo Pelini, Lloyd Carr, fans start to get frustrated when you can't break through the barrier, right? So just like with Jim Harbaugh, up until last year, myself included, a lot of Michigan fans were fed up. They were fed up with him after 2018 because, whether you think it was fair or not to judge him on taking over a bottom feeder basement dwelling program in 2014 or after the 2014 season, like you want them to get over that hump. And so it's time to move on, right? Jim Leonard or whatever at alma mater, he's the interim head coach. Wisconsin is a phenomenal place to, phenomenal gig, right? But it was just time for him to go, man. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Just couldn't get to the mountaintop. You're in the weakest division in the Big Ten Conference. More's expected. You should be appearing more there. And after really the Legends Leaders division names got put to the wayside and we went East-West, hasn't made much noise. And in the last few years, he's kind of had some disappointing seasons.
Yeah, the two things you could pretty much count on with Wisconsin is they were going to have a great offensive line, a great running back, but that's really it. It kind of fell short after that. And the point that you made about Harbaugh, everybody wanted to compare Harbaugh and Bo Pelini and Paul Chryst. Their three records were identical. They were literally identical. And the one thing I wanted to say is well, Bo Pelini and Paul Chryst both played in the Big Ten West. Harbaugh's record in the Big Ten West was 17-6 or 17-5 or somewhere along there. He has a very good record. And a couple of those losses are to Wisconsin, but basically destroying everybody else. Basically saying if Harbaugh was coaching in the Big Ten West, he would probably have an elite record. Second thing is, and I've said this for a long time, Harbaugh was trending up. In my opinion, if you take out the COVID year, he had one down year, and it was really with a quarterback carousel. The rest of those years, he was very competitive, and he was showing promise. And there was the 2016 team, obviously was as good as any team he's ever had. And Urban Meyer was quoted after that game saying that was the best defense he had ever coached against. So to say that Harbaugh was like this failed experiment, I just feel like that became a popular take, with the evidence being, well, he can't beat Ohio State. Yeah, neither can anybody else. That was always my thing. If you're only grading him on beating Ohio State, you're falling short. It would almost be and I hate to go NFL here, but if you're grading yourselves in the 2000s to losing to the Patriots, okay, well, everybody needs to fire their coach then, because everybody loses to the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
You almost have to grade around the curve. And that's how I've kind of graded Michigan. And I've been very vocal about that I thought more people needed to. And I totally understand that at some point you have to shit or get off the pot, But
right.
I was grading around the curve with Harbaugh. Ohio State is on a completely other level. And I understand wanting to be on that level, but we're just not.
Yep.
And you made some really great points with it. Urban Meyer won a national championship in 2014. Michigan fired their head coach in 2014.
Yep.
Harbaugh took over that program when Ohio State was at their height and Michigan was at a low. So it's just it needed time. Should there have been wins in there? Probably. Was he competitive in most? No, he was actually uncompetitive in most. But I don't know how this became a Harbaugh conversation, but Paul Chryst basically probably unfairly was fired. But at the same time, I think they were looking for a reason. They like Jim Leonard. They're ready to go. Yep. Nebraska, though, Matt Rule, is he a fit? What's your opinion there?
Yeah, like we were talking beforehand before we went live. Absolutely, that was honestly Nebraska. I even tweeted it. I'm not saying I got 1,000 followers, but I tweeted out instantly. I saw the report that he was fired. I thought black shirts. I thought Nebraska in a heartbeat. He formerly at Baylor. He's not going to be in the Big 12, but he's going to be in Big 12 country. He's got obviously ties in the recruiting trail, I think it'd be a no-brainer for me and I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes the head coach at Nebraska. But obviously we'll have to see how it all pans out. But yeah, that was the first thing I thought
of. Anything else before we close with a couple of game predictions?
I'm all good, bud. I just a couple of games that we kind of breezed by earlier when we were going through the rankings. Vols, Crimson Tide, Utah, USC, and hopefully Michigan State gets throttled again. But it's going to be another Krispy Kreme filled Saturday.
Yeah, so I'm gonna touch on those games right now. Just give me a quick game prediction of who you think wins. So I'm only giving you ranked matchups, and there's plenty of them. You ready?
Oh, yep.
Number 3, Alabama. Are they seriously number 3?
Yeah,
wow.
I believe so.
Wow. Okay, I didn't realize that. Wow. Number 3, Alabama at number 6, Tennessee. That's where College Game Day is going to be at. That's the big one. That's the reason why Michigan and Penn State aren't with Game Day this week. Where are you going? Tennessee's looked real good.
I'm going to go with the Volunteers. They got the momentum on their side, and yeah, man, give me Hendon Hooker. Heisman campaign is going strong. Give me the Vols.
So I agree. If Bryce Young does not play, and I at this point, I don't know if he's not playing because he's that hurt, or if they kept him out this past week to kind of have him one more week because they thought they could beat A&M, but they struggled to beat A&M. So it's like, man, Alabama is favored by 7.5. Pound Tennessee plus 7.5. I think that is a fantastic bet. But give me Tennessee outright. I agree. This home field environment, College Game Day, this is the biggest game in Tennessee in 20 years, probably. Yeah, give me Tennessee as well. Quarterback play has been really good there. Number 8, Oklahoma State, traveling to TCU. Both teams are undefeated. TCU's 13th, so this is a top 15 matchup again. Who you got?
I gotta be honest, I haven't really watched a lot of Big 12 football this year, but I'm kind of digging Oklahoma State. I like their uniforms, I like their helmets. I'll be like that rapper guest picker on College Game Day that'll somebody because of their aunt went there like 10 years ago. I'll take the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think just because it's the Big 12 and this shit happens all the time, I'm going to take the home team. They are favored by 4. Give me TCU at home in an upset, but both teams are undefeated. It's not a massive upset, but give me TCU. Number 15, NC State, traveling to Syracuse to play the 5-0 Qs. Syracuse favored 3.5. Who you got, NC State or Syracuse here? This is the top 20 matchup.
I did watch a Syracuse game earlier this year because I think it was like on a Wednesday night or something, and I think
they
it was
played
when
Purdue
they played
or something.
No, they played like UConn. I think it was one of the first 3 games. It was UConn or Louisville. I think it was Louisville, so it was the first week. Give me Syracuse. Give me the orange. I'll take the orange here. They I'll go that.
Yeah, give me the third straight home team. I think home field is going to be massive in these top 25 matchups. Syracuse favored in this one too, and I think that's I think they need to be. So yeah, give me Syracuse.
I'm looking on ESPN schedules right now. Whatever, they give you all the matchups, right? You can literally go to this $33, dude. If I'm in Syracuse, I'm going.
Yeah, why would you not go? Yeah, why would you not go? Number 16, Mississippi State, 5-1 on the year, traveling to Kentucky. They're 4-2. They dropped 2 in a row. They were literally number 7 in the country. Mississippi State favored by 6.5 on the road. Who you got, Mississippi State or Kentucky?
Oh boy, yeah, Kentucky's really they were talking them up in College Game Day a few weeks ago, and they've obviously slid back. Mississippi State's favored 6.5.
Yeah.
Kentucky's at home. Let's get a get right game. I'll take the Wildcats for the hell of it.
I agree. I'm going my fifth straight, or is it fourth straight? It's either my fourth or fifth straight home team. Give me Kentucky in a bounce back game at home. They need this one. Obviously, they're still competing for maybe an SEC title appearance, I think, right? Wouldn't they be? Or is that,
Could be.
I don't know. Regardless, give me Kentucky here. They need this one. Last but not least, undefeated USC, seventh in the country, traveling to number 20 Utah. Utah favored 3.5. Undefeated USC traveling to Utah. Who you got?
USC has. Well, go ahead.
Basically, everybody that I've heard talk about USC, they said all year the game that USC's got circled is Utah.
I mean, I definitely would, because this is the best opponent they've played so far. Washington State has been shown to be a sort of a trap opponent for some.
Yeah.
And again, yeah, USC's been flying through the schedule so far against dog shit. So I'll take Utah and the home field advantage here. I'll take Utes.
All right. Can't all the home teams win? Give me USC to stay undefeated. I just really like what they're doing offensively. Caleb Williams has been great. Allison's been great. I think it stays that way. Close game, hostile environment, but give me USC on the road. Anything else?
No, buddy, that's about it. We got a big week coming up here, and hopefully, I don't consider Penn State like maybe I should. I don't really consider like Penn State like a game I'm like super eager to watch, because maybe it's gonna say like on rival terms, but I like beating them because more Jim Harbaugh beats James Franklin, the less James Franklin and Jim Harbaugh are compared to each other, and we fight over a lot of the same recruits. So there's a lot of implications in this game.
Mm-hmm.
For not to be one that I really wait for, but very very intriguing.
Yeah, a couple things here as far as Penn State goes. So they're not a top 3 rival for us. That's Ohio State, Michigan State, and probably Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But they're probably tied for 4th with maybe Wisconsin. They're right there. The thing is like, I guess maybe Minnesota would probably find themselves 4th, and then maybe Penn State. But this is a game you got to have. If you have national title hopes, that game in Columbus is at best 50-50. So you can't lose here if you potentially still want to make the college football playoffs, even with a loss. So you got to have this one. But I will say this, only because it happened last year, and I feel like this team's getting compared to last year's team a lot. If Michigan loses this game, I don't think you can just immediately think the ship is sunk.
Right.
Because they can still run the table and still beat Ohio State on the road, and you would pray at that point that somebody else would beat Penn State. But I think Michigan has the team that's going to control this game, and I think they're going to win. We both have them covering the spread. So, yeah, nothing else really to add there. But I think we're going to find out a lot about how good Michigan is after this week, because this is obviously by far the best opponent they've played. And I think they're going to show up. So we'll see.
Yeah. One thing before we sign off, whatever. But yeah, we're talking about the rivals like Minnesota, Michigan, right? And it's you look at the all-time series lead. Michigan's dominated this 76-25, and from 1987 to 2004 they didn't lose once in Minnesota, but in 2005 and 14 they did. I really wish that Minnesota Michigan would play more often, because at least in the last few meetings there's been a lot of nail biters towards the end, so to speak.
Yeah.
Even it's been on the winning end more than not. And I know that a lot of this has to do with the conference realignment. And I know 2014, like I said, they lost, but 2015, that literally came down to piss poor clock management by Minnesota's head coach, and that had you on the edge of your seat. But yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. I just wish that we played the Gophers more often. We got the Little Brown Jug for a reason.
Yeah. 2015 was the goal line stand with Rudock, right?
Yeah, that's had Mitch Leidner and
yes.
Minnesota.
The piss poor clock management. It's coming back to me. He should have called timeout like 3 different times or clocked the ball. You're right. Now that I'm thinking about this, but it was the goal line stand game. Yeah.
They let like 15 seconds run off, and Michigan
yes.
they lost that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they probably should have, honestly. Yeah, Minnesota mismanaged that one. Yeah, I agree. Minnesota should be scheduled more, but so should Notre Dame. So it's one of those things where as college football gets bigger, it's just not a perfect world anymore. There's just more and more of this shit that you want the tradition, but it's slowly going away. So
yeah.
All right, I think that's a wrap. Tuesday night podcast was a success. Hope you guys dig it. It'll be up and available as soon as I'm done here. So that's all I got. Go Blue.
Go Blue, buddy.
All right, guys, we're out. Real talk.